Well, the PWHL came out with a gold plan for the playoffs and made some other news this week, and we're going to break it down for you on the PWHL Puck Drop podcast coming up next.
It's time for the PWHL Puck Drop Podcast.
And joining me this week is our intrepid PWHL Ottawa reporter, Chris Sinclair. He's joining us from Ottawa, and we have a lot to talk about there. There's quite a bit of news this week. Chris, what's caught your eye?
Oh man, I would say there are so many different things. Obviously, Ottawa hasn't necessarily. They've had some success. They've been really inconsistent. But also, I would say I'm super excited about their road trip next up against Minnesota and then Montreal. I see that there's a lot of potential to quickly make up the ground that people may not have expected Ottawa to make up. So those are some of the things that pop into my mind right off the bat.
As far as Ottawa goes, yeah, they're one of the big storylines. And we want to talk about the standings and the kind of how the gold plan is going to work here. So if I pull up the standings, there is Ottawa at the bottom, as you know. And actually,
Technically, technically fifth.
New
Yes,
York,
technically fifth. Yes.
they had the same win percentage. Is it head to head right now?
It's head to head. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll take it.
Yep.
But okay, so I guess I'll just go ahead and get my pet theory out of the way. I'm just getting a weird feeling that the top two teams are settling in because they've both been very consistent. The bottom four have not been as consistent. So I'm not as confident in saying that Toronto and Boston are going to stay where they are at. But there's just a weird look right now that Ottawa and New York are kind of like doing the one win, one loss, or hitting some rough patches that is just keeping them in fifth and sixth. I'm not super confident about Boston. You and I both picked Boston as the champion, and I think we both might want to back off or at least say, okay, they'll make the finals. I don't know, but it's so close, which is great. But yeah, that my pet theory is just sort of that this is settling in a little bit with a certain look. There's not as much fluctuation, although with those 3-point games, that's how Toronto made up ground quickly with their 7-game winning streak. What's that, 21 points, and they have a total of 24 points. So anything can happen, and we're only, a half or, 0.65 of the way into the season. So what do you think about, do you think the top two are pretty settled in there?
Yeah, so truthfully, and like you said, both of us picked Boston to crush this league, and well, that didn't quite happen the way we planned out. But what I would say, I would agree at this point. I would say 1-2, just the way Montreal's playing, the way Minnesota's playing, and kudos to. I just want to, like, as much as this pains me to say, kudos to Minnesota, considering that Ken Klee came in 10 days before the season started, and he's been able to lead this team to a second place. I'm not going to say finish, but at least at this point in the season is absolutely incredible. They were able to buy into a system. He's really been able to leverage his international experience to be able to come in and create a system that the team buys into really quickly, which is from his international experience, because internationally, typically you have very little time to be able to prepare, very little time to be able to instill systems. So he's used to that, and he owned it in this scenario. Truthfully, though, I would say Toronto, based on how they played, and listen, I was at the Toronto Ottawa game the other day, and I can tell you, they were so good. Troy Ryan, obviously, he has a ton of experience with Team Canada, and a ton of experience with the majority of these players. So he's done an incredible job to turn this team around. What I would say is now we're fighting for the fourth spot. And I would say, based off of how Ottawa's, like, Boston has been playing, I would say the bottom typically, like, honestly, the fourth, fifth, and sixth, they've all been playing really inconsistently, right? Like they'll
Yeah.
play a really good game. As someone who covers Ottawa, 2 games ago, they played really, really well.
Mhm.
Even arguably 3 games ago, they played really well. Didn't The outcome wasn't what they wanted to, or what they wanted, but 2 games ago played really well. Last game did not play really well, and I think that's indicative of the bottom 3 teams of this of the league. Now, the thing is to keep in mind is one of the things that I enjoy most is the 3-point win,
Right.
right? So theoretically, like, New York sitting currently at 16 points, they win 1 game and they bump up to fourth place,
Right.
right? So what I'd say is, you look at the standings, you're like, ah, man, Montreal is so much further ahead at 27 points. And yes, they are, but they lose a couple of games, and even New York or Ottawa wins a few in a row, like you're right back in it. And I think that's one of the things that's most exciting is it's unlike the NHL where it's like, well, like they're totally out of it now.
It's
They're
American Thanksgiving, and they're like, from then on, it's usually you don't really move too much from your spot. You're right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as an Ottawa Senators fan, I'll tell you, that's something that absolutely resonates with me. Once you hit the American Thanksgiving, if you're not in it, you're not in it. And with this league, you're all theoretically, I would imagine this race to go right down,
Yeah.
if not the last game, like the last 2 or 3 games of this season. And that's why I would say it's discouraging, especially with the, fourth, fifth, and sixth place teams, but you're always in it. Like at this
Yeah.
point, you're always in it. So
Yeah.
that's what's intriguing to me.
And the other, parallel storyline, I guess, is that since there are only 6 teams, the team that you're stealing those points away from is, the one that's in the race with you. It's not like, when Boston, or, in the NHL, let's say, Edmonton plays San Jose or something, and yeah, Edmonton gets the points. That's great. Like, it doesn't really matter. But here, if you're, New York and you play Minnesota and you get those 3 points and you don't allow them to get any points and the games are burning up, we're kind of like it's a short season.
Yeah.
So those 3-point victories and keeping your opponent from getting any points at all is huge. And I'm pleased that you think Toronto is kind of locked in there. I actually think the bottom 4 could move around
Mm.
very easily. Like, I think the top 2 will be in the playoffs, let's say, and then the others really don't know, but it's starting to have a look, which is weird. I didn't think it was going to do that, and maybe I'm just seeing things, but
Yeah, I would say, like, when you look at, like, I'm not a math guy. I always say I just play one on TV, but like, what's that? 8 points separates third from sixth, something like that.
yeah,
Something like that. I'm not great at that, but
24
the
yeah.
fact that's 3 wins. And now the New York, if they go on a heater and Toronto loses, now they're in third place. Right. So that's what I think. That's one of the things that, like, and I think first of all, I understand why some fan bases may be discouraged or upset that their team isn't maybe playing as well as although I don't think that's necessarily the case. But what I would say is what's encouraging is literally, like I said, that's 3 wins.
Yeah.
A team loses 2 games in a row, a team wins 3 games in a row or 2 games in a row, and everything's totally different. And so that's what, I mean, obviously, with it being only a 16 league, that will change. That changes the dynamic. But I think that's what makes this so exciting is that there's at no point is anyone true. Like Montreal, great. They're at 27 points, 10 games remaining. But that doesn't mean that they're going to win the league. They could lose the league if, even if it's, I'm trying to pick any other
Yeah.
team other than Ottawa, because that's obviously the team I cover. But if Boston wins 3-6 like four games in a row, they take over
Mhm.
first in the league.
Let's just clarify in case folks didn't understand what that gold plan playoff format announcement was all about. And in my dream scenario, it would come down to like the last game on the last day between the two teams that need the points or something like that. I don't know if that's mathematically possible, but I think it's going to come down really to the almost to the end. But
Yeah.
what can you give us a quick explanation of kind of what that is, the gold plan?
Yeah, I think it's another example of how this league is really trying to create something special and create something different. Wherein in this case, so top four teams win, or top four teams are
Make the
included in the
playoffs.
playoffs. What's interesting about that, just to kind of bit of a sidebar, would be that the top team gets to choose whether they play the third or fourth team, which I think, and based off of my conversations with the players, they actually really like that because it will add a different, it'll add some rivalry, right? So it's either you chose me, so you think I'm not as good as you,
Yeah.
or you didn't choose me because you didn't think I was good enough to compete against you. So I think that's unique. But more broadly, what it means is that the fifth and sixth team, so the two teams that didn't make the playoffs, as soon as you are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, you will then start accruing points after you're mathematically eliminated. And whomever accumulates the most amount of points after you're mathematically eliminated, you are now gifted the first overall pick, which I think is really, really unique. And it was brought on by, I forget who it was, but
I
it
think it's
just
Adam Gold was the guy's name.
perfect.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, then that would make sense.
Yep.
Yeah, the gold
Yeah, I
plan.
know. It was like, is
Yeah.
this a credit card plan or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's
it
his
felt like
name.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like it was such a unique, and again, like I can't stress enough just how much like this league, people will complain about certain things that may not go perfectly to plan, but when they do like this is such an incredibly
Yeah.
great idea where it's like, because then what that means is there's never an incentive to lose, right? So in the NHL or a lot of other different leagues, once you're out, you're like, well, I better tank because that will give me the best chance to win the first overall pick. In this, you want to compete season long because you want to obviously make the playoffs.
Yep.
But now I've not made the playoffs, but I still want to compete really hard because I want the most amount of points so that I can still get that first overall pick. So in either scenario, you're in a position in which I mean, obviously one is definitely better in that you
Yeah.
want to you want to get into the playoffs and win, but also if you don't, there's still, you compete hard and there's
Games are
still,
meaningful. The innovation, like, let's just give them some credit for what they've done with a lot of these choices they're making. It's been great to see.
yep, absolutely agree. And I would say that again, that's one of the aspects of this league that I think people need to celebrate is, regardless of the outcomes, I would say this team or this league is so innovative, is willing to try things that other leagues aren't willing to try. And that goes for any league. It's not just hockey, it's any league. You're set in your ways and I'm not going to try anything different. Or it takes so long for you to want to try something different. In this case, they were like, you know what? Screw it.
They can
Let's
change on the
try.
fly. Yeah, they can
Yeah.
turn. If it doesn't work, they can just not
Yeah.
do it. Like it, I love that attitude, and I'm really happy that they've embraced that with like, the off-site games
Yeah.
and different promotional things and, some of the social media stuff they're doing and the fan fests. Like they've just said, it sounds good, let's do it. It's kind of the like say yes and see what happens. I think that's been really, really exciting to see. And I love this idea. And, whichever team gets the first draft pick will obviously be very, very happy with that and probably be very competitive next year.
Yeah.
But let's spin quickly to just a couple of the games over the weekend and a couple of the roster notes for the teams. We did have a great game between Minnesota and New York with Matty Rooney posting a shutout. she wasn't named one of the stars of the week. We have Sarah Nurse with 2 games played, and boy, she played well. She had 2 goals, 2 assists, 2 goals, obviously, in that overtime win. And Sophie Jakes, 2 goals herself in that same game. She's the second star. And Renata Fast, the third star, with 4 assists in those 2 games for the hard charging Toronto coming at you. Like, watch out. And then, like, did you have any other stars that caught your eye that, like, I thought, Rooney played well. And I think Erin Frankel was named the week before with her great shutout. I always have a soft spot for the goalies, but
Mhm.
who was like, since you're from an Ottawa point of view, who do you give like a star for the week?
Yeah, so first of all, what I would say is absolutely a starter Rooney. Like I think like an incredible, absolutely incredible game. If we're looking from an Ottawa perspective, I would say someone who's an unsung hero who may not always stand out on the scoreboard, although she did last game, is Ashton Bell. Like she,
Yes. Well, she saved the
you know,
goal. Yeah. She
exactly,
played
yeah, yeah.
goalie. Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. She played goalie and she made it look super easy, which I know is not. But yeah, just I would say Ashton Bell. She, it was 2 games in a row where she had some sort of play that saved a goal, either saved a goal, scored a goal. Like she's just looked incredible out there, and she's continued to grow. I mean, you could go with the Daryl Watts and not to take away from her because I think she's
Yeah, she
continued
had a
to
great
elevate her
week.
play.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I would say maybe a lesser known would be Ashton Bell, and I've just been super impressed with her, and she's just so humble and just so she gets her assignments, she owns it, and she just quietly does exactly what the team needs. So it's been incredible to see that.
Yeah, she's so flexible. Obviously, she was a forward converted to D, so
Yeah, and it shows. It
it
shows.
shows because she plays a little bit like a rover. I mean,
Yeah,
little bit like Renata Fast, whose game
yeah,
I just love. So there were actually quite a few roster moves made this past week, and some major ones. If we want to look at those really quickly, the one that, of course, most people were really excited to see was Melody Daou come to Montreal to play. Signed to her 10-day standard player agreement and scored the winning goal. So not a bad debut for her. And who else did we have back? Taylor Heise.
yeah. That was Dayu was a really great pick there, but I would say arguably for the team, Heisey might be that was the one that was most notable for me. Yeah, coming
Yeah, I
back from
should
injury.
correct.
And for me personally, when I saw Heisey, I was like, ah,
Oh,
man,
I
she's back.
know. They've
She's just
missed
so
her
incredible. Yeah, they've missed her.
face-offs and
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
carrying the puck into the zone and
yeah,
with confidence. It's
yeah,
like everybody, and they always say this, it's a cliche, but when you get people slotted correctly, so you don't have I think it was Abby Boreen or no, Kelly Panic, I think, moved up.
yeah.
And so everybody kind of got to settle into the proper roles, and like it just makes a huge difference. People play better when they sort of know that the lead player is your first line center's there, and not that they want to just kind of count on her, but it just feels like everybody can relax and play their game.
Yeah,
Um,
and they say whatever league it is, right? Like it's noticeable when your
yeah,
players are playing in an elevated role that they're not necessarily, and not to take away from their skill set, but when they're not playing to their position, and it was noticeable, right? But at the same time, it's
yeah.
like you introduce Heisey back into this lineup, like, whoa, look out, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Well,
that's
they
one of
missed her. I think
yeah,
they
absolutely they did.
missed
Yeah.
2 or 3 games, or at least they, got a couple points in overtime. But they needed her. It was pretty
Yeah.
evident that players were trying to reach, and Liz
Yeah.
Shepherd was injured briefly as well. I don't know if she's on the list here as coming back, but she missed a couple games, and she's been someone that I was really impressed with. So both of them actually came back together, and those were big additions.
Yeah.
Do you have those in front of you? Do you want me to kind of run through a couple or?
Yeah, why don't you run through a few of them? Because again, the big one for me was Heise. So
I
that's kind of
see.
like
Okay.
yeah, that was the one that stood out to me. But let's go through them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Abby Boreen was able to return. Actually, she signed her second 10-day standard player agreement. I think you're only allowed two of those. So I'm not sure if they want to fit her on the roster, if they would have to cut somebody, but she was a surprise, has been a really pleasant surprise. So, great to see her kind of continuing her run. We have Alexandra Poznikov from Montreal with Kennedy Marchment going on LTIR. I'm not that familiar with her, but congratulations.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
um,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's going to
then
be a really good addition for that team. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not to take away from Marchman. I think obviously Marchman is a more profound player there. But I would say that's a good addition for that
good
team.
addition. And
Yeah.
then we have Kristen Delravere on LTIR with
Yeah.
Ottawa.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
say?
so no corresponding move there. There has been speculation as to who's going to be signing with Ottawa, but there's no confirmation at this point as to who's going to take that spot.
And as far as Rosalie Demers, I think is that Demers? Demers?
Yeah, Demirs. Yeah.
I think she's played really well. She's been noticeable for me. A good, just kind of a good, versatile looking player. I don't know what you've seen.
She has an incredible plus minus, and I know that's a controversial topic, but what I would say is it's indicative of how she plays in her own end. And you've seen that in these games where she plays, she doesn't play a ton of minutes, but she is absolutely someone that you can count on to be able to get especially being a forward, being able to get the pass out of the zone, that outlet pass. She's now able to support the defenders.
But here's where I want to hit you with a bit of a pop quiz surprise question. And what I'd like to do is look at the standings. And I think what we'll do is we'll alternate because I want to do all six teams. So I'm going to go first. So I'll do the first team, then you'll do the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay. So
Okay.
and I'll tell you who that is in case
Yep.
we get mixed up here. But the
Yep.
question is going to be for each team, what is the one thing they must do in the remaining part of the season, whether
Ooh.
that's continue to do or change or just
Okay.
plain do in order to, have success, make the playoffs, hopefully make the championship. So,
Love
all
this.
right.
Love this. And this is for the record, 100%. I have no idea where this is going, so I'm super excited about this.
Yeah,
So
and we
yeah.
we both I I want to just do it like rapid fire, like first and like can't be like, well, really it should be this, but I want to like it's gonna be
No.
whatever comes to your head
Yeah.
that you've seen
It's
and that
word
you
association, basically. I love it.
basically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
PWHL Montreal must continue to get high scoring from Poulin and Stacy. I don't know if that's a
Okay.
double answer. If I have to single it, I'll say Poulin.
Cool. Yep.
They must. They cannot survive defensively just hoping someone else scores. They have relied on her so far. She's come through so far. That's my rapid fire answer that they must continue to do that. So
Okay.
number 2 is Minnesota, and that's going to be you, Chris.
All right. Continue to buy into Ken Klee's systems. If they believe into those systems, they have been successful thus far. They will continue to be successful.
Interesting. Big Ken Klee fan over here. I wonder what
Yes.
his systems are. I'll pay more attention.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3 happens to be Toronto, and I will take that. And I have not pre-thought this, I swear. And I think what I'm going to say is,
Don't pick the same answer I'm going to pick for Boston because I really don't want to repeat what you have to say, but I'm excited to hear
I
what you.
don't think so,
Okay,
but
good.
I actually changed my mind a half a second into it, but that's fair enough. It's still rapid.
Okay.
My answer is that the D pair of Renata Fast and Jocelyn Larocque must play at the standard they have been playing the last 6 or 7 games rather than the first 6 or 7 games. I think they were truly inconsistent. They looked a little uncomfortable. There was something that they just didn't look like themselves. Giveaways and it might have been working with the forwards. I don't know. And since we're keeping our answers short, I won't speculate. They must continue to get great play and heavy minutes and no injuries to that defensive pair. Okay, number 4 is Boston, and I don't think that's your answer, but what's your prescription for PWHL Boston?
Yes, thank you so much for not stealing my answer because I would have gone in a different direction, but I respect that answer
All right.
absolutely. I would say goaltending. So with Boston, they need to be able to, if they aren't able, someone like Soderberg, Frankel, like they are absolutely. I actually picked both of them to finish higher in the standings based on their play previous to this league, which shows the parity in this league. But I would say they need to ride that and they need to be able to get more out of the two of them in order to be able to elevate their play, their, obviously where they finish. But those are two elite goaltenders.
And to
And for them
fulfill
to
our
be,
prophecy of them winning the
yeah,
championship.
I know. Yeah, it's all, yeah, I'm manifesting something here. But yeah, absolutely. Those are two elite goaltenders. They need to ride that. Absolutely.
Good answer. Especially Soderberg, I think,
Yeah.
I really like her, and I think she will, as she acclimates even further, but her numbers are kind of mid right now. Okay, but I get to do number 5, PWHL Ottawa.
Yeah, this pains me for the record. I wish
Oh,
that it happened the other
yeah, well, that's why I did it, because
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well
partly
played.
because you would have too much, and it would be like painful for you to even tell them what to do. So I
Yeah.
am going to be the doctor that prescribes for PWHL Ottawa.
Before you say that,
No.
can I comment on
Yeah.
your okay. Okay. So we
Okay.
can make that
After we finish
expedient.
number 6, we can
Okay.
revisit
Okay.
Ottawa and you can
Okay.
give.
I can respect that. I can respect that.
Okay. I'm going to say they need to clean up their defensive play in their own zone, limiting turnovers, cleaning up breakouts. I mean, if I can expand, like, especially at key moments in the game, but they do it all game long. So let's just leave it at that. Stop
Yeah.
turning the puck over. Give Emmerich Mashmeyer a fighting chance so she's not having to make 2 and 3 saves. I know that sounds kind of harsh, but like to the naked eye, it just looks like, gosh, they played so well, and then someone just made a mistake and it's in the back of the net. And I really feel for Mashmeyer because I love her and I love how she plays. And I see her getting just slammed out there. I mean, last game she was pulled, and like, fair enough, but what else do you want from her? So, forwards to defense, everybody can look in the mirror. It's not one player or one specific thing. It's just tighten that down and, play for each other so that that isn't becoming kind of your identity as the like, let's blow this lead kids. All right. I know you'll have something to say, but number 6, PWHL New York needs to.
York needs to. The first thing that comes to mind is there were reports released today around issues with their head coach, Howie Draper.
Oh.
And what I would say is, as someone who has met Howie Draper, has had conversations with Howie Draper, I want them to believe 100% in what he's trying to do. He is a good coach. Yes, it's taken some time, but believe in his systems because what he is putting in place, sure, it hasn't, statistically speaking, it hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see their game, when they believe in their system, they are actually a really difficult team to beat. But when they immediately lose sight of that system, then now you're seeing the sixth place team.
I always think almost whatever league you're talking about, it's almost too easy a place to go. And like Carla McLeod is not a bad coach either. And yet, Ottawa is,
Yeah.
having missteps and there's so much that comes into play with chemistry. So I hope that doesn't grow into a bigger storyline because I think you're right. I mean, give the man one season and at least, hopefully another season, give this a chance to gel as you would with, a lot of other things that are happening really fast. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting answer. And now you get your, hall pass permission slip.
Thanks, boss. I
So you
appreciate
can't
that.
you can't give a top 10, but you can just sort of comment and add to the Ottawa situation.
Yeah, I would say, thank you. I would
You're
say
welcome.
first and foremost, Mash is someone who actually appreciates the more shots. Not to say I don't want her, like, obviously, you never want to give a goaltender more shots in a game than you need to, but she's actually someone who she's said herself that she appreciates the more shots because obviously, then at that point, you kind of get a better feel for the game. And she's been someone who has been peppered. I think I saw it's 293 saves this season, something like that, which is, I don't know where that puts her in terms of overall goaltending, but she's faced a ton of shots. I mean, it also helps that she's played every game basically, but she is someone who benefits both personally and professionally from taking a bunch of those shots. What I would say also is that this team, Ottawa, it's two things. It's net front pressure. So they don't necessarily consistently, and I noticed this especially the last game, they don't actually pressure like their two goals last game were in tight in front of the net. Right. So if they attack the net, if their net front presence is where it needs to be, they've got they would have won that game. I'm sure they would have won the game against Toronto if they had stayed net front presence, because again, their two goals that they scored were because they were in front of the net. There was a nice spinorama. There was another, I believe it was Gabby Hughes got a really nice goal there as well. But that's because they attacked net front presence.
You know, every team has interesting storylines, but this Ottawa sort of, what do we make of it is you could just find endless things to kind of wonder out loud. And when I saw Coach McLeod's press conference, I think it was after their win, which she was really happy for, but she said, good things don't come easily, and we know that, and we shouldn't expect that. And I mean, she was just all positivity as far as what it's going to take and continue to take. And it's not that you get somewhere, now you stand and enjoy the achievement. And boy, if any league shows it, it's this compacted 6-team league that, everybody's basically going to war. And while you were mentioning that, I did pull up Mashmeyer's shots against are 340. That's actually three more than the second place goalie, which is Kristen Campbell, who's also played, 13 games. Mashmeyer's played in 14. And I mean, they're pretty similar in that way. And I do agree, some goalies do play better. Many goalies do play better once they're warmed up and they're in the zone. But, mine is just like a mercy feeling, like, help her out. Like, and if helping her out is go score a goal so that she doesn't feel like she is walking a tightrope, that's a hard place to be mentally. So,
Like, again, we've talked about it, just like the parity in this league is unparalleled. Like, it's unbelievable just how, like, no one's really out of it. No one knows how this season's going to end. This season's going to go right up until the end.
yeah.
It's not like any other league, and that's what makes this exciting. So I'm incredibly excited to see, we're halfway through the season. We have the draft, or the trade deadline coming up, which is going to be super exciting. And then, like how things change, how things maybe don't change. And then there's the draft, and then there's all these, like, this is incredibly exciting. So, like, there's nothing to be sleeping on about this league. So that's really like I could go on, but those are some of those things where it's like, man, it's difficult not to have a giant smile on your face because
Oh
it's
yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
And I don't think you even said the word Ottawa. But
No, see, thank you. I appreciate that. I really tried to work my way around that. Yeah, absolutely.
maybe next time when we get together, we can, if it's still before the trade deadline, or even if it's after, we could talk about that, whether, trades get made or not. I don't know if I'm anticipating a lot of action, but I think there might be some moves, and that would certainly be exciting to cover, to see whether teams address some of those pieces of advice that we have bestowed upon them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our gift to them is our
Right.
knowledge. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I'm down.
Take
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
if you will, or don't.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not all knowing, but well, it's been great chatting with you, Chris. Have fun continuing to cover Ottawa. Don't forget to check out Chris's podcast, The Rinkside Rundown. And he writes for the Hockey News. So Chris is anything and everything Ottawa. You'll probably see him if you go to a game. He'd love for you to come and say hi and tell him he is wrong on everything that he just said. I'm just kidding. And if you see me at the Toronto game, please come and tell me that I'm wrong, because there's just nothing better than talking hockey, right? Whether you're
Absolutely, I
agreeing or
agree.
disagreeing.
Yeah, that's what
So
this is all about.
that's right. That's right. All right. Well, thanks again, Chris. Have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you again soon here in the Puck Drop Podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
PWHL Puck Drop Podcast.